Hi, this is Rico Figliolini, host of Petrie Corners Life and several other podcasts and publisher of Petrie Corners Magazine. We're here at Anime Weekend Atlanta, and our special guest today is Laura Stahl, an LA voice actor, English voice actor, who's been doing this for a few years.
A few, yes.
And so she's joining us for this interview. She's voiced Ray, one of my favorite anime characters in the Promised Neverland
Oh, really?
series.
Thank you.
Yes, and you did a great job on
I
that too.
appreciate that.
And she's also been the voice of Dorothy and the Great Pretender.
Yes.
Aruma, I believe, on Welcome to Demon School ArumaCon. Among other, I can't even name how many others.
A few other things, yes.
Right. So, I guess tell me what got you into voice acting.
Oh my goodness. It kind of sort of happened by accident. I went to school for musical theater and really enjoyed that, but once I finished, I knew that I really wanted to kind of branch out and try some more things, so I went into production a little bit. I did prop work a little, I did some workshops, not workshops, I did wardrobe, I beg your pardon.
Okay.
I worked as a PA, a production assistant on set. I did some stand-in work. I did some AD work and other things like that to really sort of get to know just the entertainment industry as a whole.
Right.
I wanted to make sure that I had a respect for all of the departments that were working around me, be it on stage or on screen or wherever I might have ended up. And I had a roommate that I was living with because it's very difficult to live in Los Angeles, especially when you're just starting out.
Sure.
So I had a roommate who was also, kind of trying different things and started to get a little bit of traction in voiceover. His name is Kyle McCarley. If you look him up, you'll probably recognize a couple of his roles. He's pretty well known in the anime world as well. But this was way before that had happened.
Right.
And he got into it, and he was starting to really enjoy it. He suggested that I might also enjoy trying it, and I thought, why not? And we were working on trying to do audiobooks, silly enough, and we created a little demo for ourselves, which I don't recommend. Don't do that. Don't create your own demo. But I did that, and he introduced me to the casting director over at Bang Zoom Studios, and they're a pretty well-known studio. And they kind of opened the door for me to learn a little bit more, and I got to know a few more people within the voiceover community, and it kind of all branched out just from making friends and associates. Networking, the scary word networking, is really, in my opinion, just making friends, the fancy way. And doors sort of started to open and opportunities sort of blossomed just from getting to know and meet different people and saying yes to different opportunities that didn't necessarily align with what I was thinking of in terms of success, because I was still thinking about stage and screen. And
well, you were a music and theater major in high school.
Yeah, so I, was singing and dancing and things like that, and I never thought about, not having people look at me and going into a box.
You want to be in front of the screen versus behind it.
Right, but the way that things have turned out have been just fantastic, and I'm really pleased with the direction that my career has taken. I've gotten to do a lot of things that I never thought would be possible already, and I still feel relatively new. It takes such a long time to really get started. A lot of people think about overnight success as literally being overnight, but really it's like a 10-year process for overnight to happen all of a sudden. And I've gotten to do so much in such a small amount of time that I would never go back. This is fantastic. I'm having so much fun.
And anime has been, for at least the last few years, been a big part of what you've been doing.
Absolutely.
But you also do sometimes audio books.
I've done a couple of audiobooks, just a few. Primarily, a lot of my work has been anime or video games, JRPGs, things like that. On top of voice acting, I'm also a script adapter, so I'll take the translated script from the original production, the subtitled version perhaps, of an anime, and I'll adapt it so that it works for the dub. And I've also begun directing as well.
Oh, okay.
Which is really fun. I've been really enjoying that and getting to work with my fellow actors.
It's funny, we just interviewed Shannon Reed yesterday,
Mhm.
who's also an ADR director.
There you go. Yeah. So, and it's fantastic because really you become a professional cheerleader at that point.
Yeah, pretty much.
You
Right.
know.
and even, I mean, you're in LA, so
Mhm.
he's from Texas, and he works,
yes.
I think, with
Sentai, yeah, works.
Sentai.
Yeah.
So, different ways of doing things. even,
Yeah, a
right?
little bit. From what I understand, the way that things work in Dallas sort of differ from the things that what we do in LA. In that in Dallas, from what I understand, they like to work sort of. In my mind, it feels very theatrical because when they record, they try to record as much of a scene continuously as possible. From what I understand, like you'll watch down the scene and then they'll just hit record and they'll throw the scene at you and you'll just keep going. Whereas in Los Angeles, we kind of will do piecemeal. Like we'll do a run of a few lines, maybe between 1 and maybe 5 or 6 lines. If they're really close together, we'll preview just that small bit, and then we'll go and we'll take that bit, or maybe we'll just do 1 line at a time because we would like to get like right into the nitty gritty and make sure that everything that's being said fits the sync of the animation. We'll get very meticulous sometimes, which has its pros and cons.
Does that kill the emotional aspect of
I mean, not in
acting?
any way. To me, it's not so much, only because, like, if you think of it in terms of acting on film or on camera, you often can only do a snippet of a scene, or you're doing a snippet of a scene several times in a row, and then you're changing the camera angle, and you're doing that same snippet of a scene several times in a row. And it can be a high stakes scene, what have you, but you'll do that scene, and then you'll wait 15 whole minutes, right, or more, depending on what the gaffers and the crew members have to do to reconfigure the set so that you can continue on. And it's the actor's job to make sure that they can remain emotionally available and pliable for that moment that's supposed to only be taking.
And if you're a method actor, you're stuck in that emotion for
You
a whole
can
day
be,
or something.
or you find your tricks to get out of it. You take a step, you take some water, you sit down, you have a quiet time, and you allow yourself to get back into the moment. But these are much shorter amounts of time, so this is only just a couple of seconds to reset and keep going. So if they can do that on set, there's no reason why we can't do that in the booth. But then again, it can be trying.
And the booth has been a little different too, right? For the last 2 years almost because of COVID.
Oh yes, absolutely. Things have very much changed.
Right. So how has that changed to a degree for you, or is it? I don't know if it's better. Sometimes it can be better. Sometimes not.
I mean, just like everything else, there's those pros and cons. Virtually everything once COVID hit, virtually everything was happening from home, and there was a very steep and sudden learning curve in terms of trying to create a workable workspace or recording space within your home. Because many of us are living, of course, in an apartment complex, and you don't have control of who lives above you or who lives below you. Even just last week, a friend of mine was talking to me about how they were directing and they had to take a break because their actor needed to go out and upstairs to their upstairs neighbor and ask them to stop vacuuming.
Wow, okay, that would do it.
So there's lots of very interesting hurdles that we have to get over.
Right.
But there are also, because technology has advanced the way that it has, we also have the availability of usable and affordable options that can create broadcast quality audio.
Oh yeah, sure. Microphones have come down quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely, they have. I mean, they can still absolutely, if you want one, you can get a very pricey microphone. But at the same time, there are workable options that can be used in times of great need, as such was COVID. And I think the community really it was a beautiful thing to see because the community really came together to try to help each other out. People who have more knowledge about audio works and how the DAW would work or how to soundproof your space. They came together, they created like little pages and pages of information for people who were brand spanking new to this, and made all of this information accessible to the entire community to make sure that we could all get up and running as quickly as we could. I feel like the industry sort of shut down for, I don't know, I want to say a couple of weeks only, because we needed, and everybody was kind of stopping and starting and not knowing what to do, because there were clients who were like, we really need to get this through, we need to push this through as quickly as possible. And other clients were like, oh, maybe we should just wait a little bit, we can try to wait it out and see if maybe things will open back up a little sooner,
Right.
so that we can get back into the booth and make sure that the audio quality is perfect. And everybody was very much hedging their bets. And once it became quite clear that we weren't really going to open up again for a little while, everything sort of fell into this deluge, right? The dam broke, because there were things that were scheduled to start at this time, and other things that held until this time, and other things that still had deadlines over here. So all of a sudden there was all of this stuff that was happening all at once, and people were sort of, you know, overrun with trying to catch up and to catch up with everything and make sure that we could get things out on time and in a quality manner.
And I imagine that, you know, unlike movie sets where you have to be on the set to shoot the piece, that even during COVID, because you guys were doing it remotely, and because maybe the solution was solved with the audio tip, that really, like you said, didn't stop too much. I mean,
No,
that
not too
kept
much.
going,
We
right?
stopped and started. It was a really fast turnaround from full stop to let's get going again. And one of the really interesting things that happened was kind of a leveling of the playing field. We've seen more and more casts that include people from all across the coasts, from the East Coast to the West Coast, and even mixed casts from different countries. I was writing last year. I wrote the first half of Yashahime, Half-Blood Demon Princess. I think yes. The continuation of Inuyasha. And we got many of the cast members from Inuyasha back in to dub their previous characters when they were in the season, in the show, and they were still in Canada, and we were able to reach them and record with them virtually, like over the internet, right? So we were able to, casts have been really integrating, and we've been able to work coast to coast, and that has been fantastic. And I think it's also made it really exciting and accessible for people who want to get into this industry.
Sure.
Because classes that were primarily only available in the cities in which we were working, like Los Angeles, Dallas, and New York, they're available globally now. If you have an internet connection, you can take a class with a working casting director or agent or director who lives in Los Angeles and is creating for Blizzard or whatever it is. You can do,
It's open.
Yeah, it's
Open
all open season. You've got education from everywhere. You can get cast from everywhere. I was directing actors who were in New York. I was directing actors who were in Dallas, or I have castmates from those places, and actors in Las Vegas. The world's your oyster.
You know, you were talking about networking before. I mean, it's even better now because you're able to meet people that you probably would not have met before.
Yeah, actually, yes. And I do know a few people who relocated to Los Angeles in the middle of the pandemic, and they were able to do so because they had already created connections over here because of the pandemic.
Okay.
So they submit to those production houses that were local to Los Angeles, and they started a rapport over there, or they were even able to submit to agencies and get representation before they made their way out. So while COVID, of course, is a horrible tragedy that we're all still kind of shaken from and recovering from, it's been sort of inspiring to see how the ingenuity of the industry has really innovated and changed the landscape.
And it hasn't changed. It hasn't been a detriment to the industry.
Not
So that's
fully.
good.
I know that things are not done changing. We're going to continue to evolve, especially as things start to open up again, and I'm really excited to see what happens next.
Well, this was a great conversation. Laura Stahl,
Yes.
voice actor, LA, English voice actor. Lots of great anime she's been doing. Now doing ADR directing as well and adaptation of scripts. So it was a pleasure to have you. This is Anime Week in Atlanta in 2021. So I
Yep.
appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a blast.
Thank you.